I'm joined now by the new ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Robert Garcia. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks.
So now that you are atop this committee, what is going to be your first priority, especially as it relates to Donald Trump and Republicans moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, look, first, I'm obviously very grateful to the House Democratic Caucus for this opportunity. I love oversight and the work that this committee does. And so I think there's an opportunity here to really work to hold this administration accountable. We know that this administration is the most corrupt in our history as a country. And certainly, if you look at the modern era, there is just no level of corruption that has ever impacted our agencies, the American public, the connection between corporations and corporate power and money. And so the work is more important than ever. When I came into Congress, I looked at folks like Jamie Raskin, who was leading this committee, as a true hero in this work in protecting the Constitution. So the opportunity to follow in the footsteps of someone like Chairman Raskin is for me an important moment and an important responsibility. Our top priority needs to be to hold Donald Trump accountable for his crimes and corruption, to hold the Trump family accountable for their crimes and corruption. When you think about the $400 million plane, when you think about the coin and the crypto scheme that essentially is a bank account for foreign money to just pour in, when you think about the investments of the Trump hotel properties in places across the world where we're trying to have actually diplomacy, that is corruption. And over again, whether it was the Kushner's deal with Saudi Arabia when they left the White House, whether it's selling Trump-branded products, this is all concerning. Presidents should not be profiting off the White House. And so it's going to be our job as the lead committee on investigations to investigate this corruption. Now, at the same time, we're going to have to make sure that we take on powerful interests, large corporations that are looking right now at scamming the American public. That will also be an important part of the committee. And finally, this is the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. And the government reform piece is exciting. It's going to be a forward-looking agenda around how we make government more efficient, more effective for the American public, how we use technology and innovation to provide services better, how we uplift federal workers and make essentially the services of the federal government easier to use. And so I'm excited about that work ahead. It's a big agenda, but we're ready. We're getting started.
With that said, that raises the obvious question. You're obviously going to face a lot of opposition from these Republicans. And so from the minority, how are you able to exercise the full breadth of your powers when you have an opposition party that really exists to serve as an extension of the executive branch?
Yeah, I mean, I think first we've got to be fearless in taking on some of the kind of loudest voices in the MAGA universe, right? I mean, we've got to continue to call out Marjorie Taylor Greene and Nancy Mace and Jim Jordan, all of who sit on this committee, and be honest with the American public that they are telling lies to distort what we as Democrats are trying to do, and they're trying to move our country backwards. And then we've got to take on powerful interests like Elon Musk and Donald Trump. But it's the power of oversight is that we also have the power to do investigations, even in the minority. We still have the power to try to move forward legislation, even in the minority. And certainly, as Republicans hold their hearings, like they've done in the past to try to, for example, impeach President Biden, or they've tried to have these crazy Doge hearings to promote their ideas with Elon Musk, I think Democrats have done a pretty good job of pushing back, of calling out the lies, of making sure that people know that we're there to enforce the truth. And look, you've got folks in this committee like Maxwell Frost and Jasmine Crockett and Greg Casar and Summer Lee, and newer members like Yasemin Ansari and incredible people, Dave Min, just folks that are committed, I think, to exposing the truth and not afraid to punch back. So I think that's going to be important as well.
So something that I focus on, and I know something that's been a priority of yours, is the messaging aspect of all of this. That it's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest, nobody hears it. Did it actually happen? A lot of what happens in government almost doesn't matter if nobody knows, because a lot of the pressure to be able to do anything comes from all of these outside voices being able to put that pressure on the majority. And so in terms of the messaging focus of this committee, how is this going to be different from your predecessor, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, this is something that we're going to build out. I think that we have a very unique opportunity. I mean, I obviously, as the new ranking member, when we win the majority to chair this committee, we're gonna build a committee that is forward-looking, that uses communication to the best of our ability, that is reaching out to people where they're consuming their information. I mean, we want folks that are watching you, that are getting most of their information and news from, whether it's YouTube or what they're watching on their phones. That's the future. And so to be
Yeah.
in digital spaces, to produce content that is relatable and that people can understand, so that a complex investigation is not just a letter that goes out on committee letterhead, but is translated in a way that people can understand what is happening with our investigations. Because that's not going to happen overnight, but I can promise you that in the months ahead, you are going to see this committee communicate in places and in ways that it hasn't before.
Love to hear it, and glad to see the eventual retirement of posting a JPEG of some statement onto Twitter and just calling it a day. With that said, you yourself, I believe, are probably the youngest Oversight Committee ranking member that the Democratic Party has had. The Democratic Party rewards its members by seniority, and we're seeing that play out in all of in virtually every committee that we have, and so. With with your ascent to the top of Oversight, how is the party looking at the rest of these committees right now, so that there's less of an incentive just to stay there as long as possible, and then inherently within that you have the oldest members who may be the least adept at being able to optimize in this media environment, from those people being the ones to have all the power in these committees?
Yeah, I think I just learned this morning that I'm the first ranking member in over 100 years to be elected as a sophomore in their sophomore term. And
Yeah.
I get like the kind of weight of that, and I take that like obviously really seriously. I'm really, really grateful that our caucus looked at kind of where we're at as a party and made the decision that we needed to expand the tent and bring in newer voices to the leadership table and bring in different perspectives. And so I am pumped and fired up about this caucus supporting me, and I think the folks that we are bringing to the table in a new way. So I think that's number one, a great move by the party and this Democratic caucus in the House. Secondly, look, I think we're going to push to do things differently. And being at the leadership table, you're going to see this committee move in a very different way. And I think the fact that, look, oversight is, in my opinion, not the most important, one of the most important committees in the Congress. And we are charged with the investigations and the main investigations of essentially the executive branch, as well as corporate power. And so what we do and and how we message it is going to resonate and build the larger message, I think, for the country and for the party. So I take that responsibility of what we do. I know this committee oftentimes gets more attention than what other committees might do.
Yeah.
And we're going to use that kind of spotlight to highlight and go after the corruption of Donald Trump, the corruption of some of these large corporations that are ripping off the American people, and then also do some really good things. And I want to use the talents. When you have someone as talented as like a Summer Lee on your committee, when you have Ro Khanna, when you have Max Frost, let's use them to explain to the American public what oversight actually is doing. And I think there's some unique opportunities there.
Can you talk about what your first priority, I mean, like tangibly speaking, your first priority, because I know that there's a full raft of things that oversight is going to have jurisdiction over, whether it's, Trump's corruption, whether it's, the Elon Musk of it all, whether it's the ways in which this government, the administration is lying. What is your immediate priority given the moment that we're in right now?
So I think there's two things. One is obviously building the best team possible on the staff side, on the committee side, and that's obviously obvious, right? As far as our work, I think the single most important thing right now for this committee to do is to expose the just egregious corruption that is happening across every agency in government. And we've got to be talking about Donald Trump's corruption every single day. It is beyond what anyone has ever done. He's essentially turned the White House into an ATM for himself and his family. If President Obama or President Biden had done just one of these things, it would be an international scandal.
Oh, you mean the guy that they made a 6 month story about the color suit he wore? He would have, if he did any of the things that Donald Trump is doing right now, if he started a meme coin where the money gets funneled back into his pocket, if he bought a $400 million plane from a state sponsor of terrorism country, that would be something that they would focus on.
Yeah, if he sold Bibles with his signature on them, that wouldn't
Yeah.
be, they just pass it off as, oh, now who cares? I mean, give me a break. I mean,
Yeah.
this is complete. I mean, what's happening right now is serious.
Yeah.
And look, we have a lot of committees that are doing really important work, right? I mean, we've got big issues in healthcare. We've got education issues. We've got issues on the tax system. Well, our job is to expose corruption and bring transparency to government. And I take that responsibility really seriously.
Okay, let's finish off with this. And this is something that I've been particularly focused on, but that is, so often we talk to people, and whether it's ranking members of committees or just anybody in the party, and we'll say, like, what are your priorities? And they're like, oh, we have to try to find common ground and figure out where we can work together with our Republican brothers and sisters or colleagues on the other side of the aisle. And there's more that connects us than drives us apart. And we never get that same messaging from the other side. They're not coming in looking to work in a bipartisan fashion. They're looking to basically give Donald Trump the green light to traffic in the overt corruption that he's in right now and to consolidate more power for themselves. And so there's this massive asymmetry where one party is looking to kind of protect the government from of the past and work together, and like that's how we get things done. And then you have another side that knows that the left is going to give them deference, and so they just use that as a pretense to be able to kind of run roughshod over the government, because you've got one side that's already laying down their arms. And so how do you think about that? How do you think about this broader idea of fighting back, especially in light of the fact that for so long Democrats have been looking to figure out where we can compromise with a party that not only doesn't want compromise, but in fact wants to completely decimate everything we know about our democracy in pursuit of more consolidation of power for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think first, look, I think it's very clear, and I pitch myself this way. I think the caucus knows that I'm a fighter. I have not been shy about calling out Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the worst of the worst. I mean, Donald Trump, sent his Justice Department after me. Nancy Mace's tried to censure me. I mean, I am not a shrinking violet. I'm pretty fearless in the work we've got to do. And so that's the energy we're going to bring to this committee. And I'm excited that the caucus felt that it was important to put kind of the next generation fighter, who is not afraid of communicating in the spaces that we need to be in, like what we're doing today, to get that message out. So I'm pretty fired up about it. And look, it's not going to happen overnight, but you're going to see this committee is going to become central to the argument on Donald Trump's corruption, and certainly as we win back the majority.
Excellent. Well, we will leave it there. Robert Garcia, appreciate your time, and best of luck as you enter this new journey here as a ranking member of the Oversight Committee.
Thank you.